Why not you? Have you ever thought about that? Why not you? And are there people in your group who are asking themselves that same question? Or maybe in another way, why can't I? One of the things I want to challenge you with this week is maybe get out of your comfort zone a little bit and start your group out by asking that question in that way. One of the favorite things that Jesus did of mine is the way that he asked questions. And he didn't always want an answer to the questions. Sometimes it was just a rhetorical question. Sometimes he would ask questions to the Pharisees and Sadducees. Sometimes he would ask people, who do you say that I am? What do you think we should do? And he was a master at asking questions. And so questions, they're kind of a tool in your teaching toolbox. And so if you want to grab attention this week, ask that question, why not you? And then allow for a few seconds of some awkward silence. We always like that. And it may feel a little bit weird, but it may grab somebody's attention in a way. And what a question does, it gets your brain firing. It sparks something. It forces people to think. Instead of them just listening to you talk, it kind of puts the ball in their court and makes their brain start to engage in what you're doing. So think about kicking off your group in that way by asking the question, why not you? Why would God not want to use you? So this week we're picking up in John chapter 1, verses 40 through 51. And my favorite thing about John is that his gospel is different. When you read Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it starts out with a narrative and you got some genealogy and lots of details. John goes from the first part of chapter 1 where he talks about these kind of big, heavy, mind-blowing things about in the beginning, the Word was with God and all this really heavy stuff, which is amazing. And then in that same chapter, we're already to Jesus calling his disciples to follow him. So there's a lot that's going on there. Last week, your lesson ended with the part of chapter 1 before it talks about John. So if somebody in your class is reading through John chapter 1, between these two lessons, John talks about the ministry of John the Baptist. And so we pick up here in verse 40 where Andrew, Peter, and then Philip and Nathanael are called by Jesus to follow him. So there is a call to follow. And one of the interesting things that your book tells you is that Jesus changed the way that the students, if you will, would start following the mentor. Kind of the tradition before was that a student would pick a rabbi, a teacher that they wanted to study under, and they would approach them and ask if they could do that, and then that process would take place. Jesus reversed the process as he did in so many other things. They didn't come to Jesus. Jesus sought them out. So that's a picture we see in salvation where we didn't seek God out. We didn't seek Jesus out. He sought us out. He went to these people and told them to follow him. So Jesus changed the process. And so what was the first response? I'm really appreciative of first responders, policemen, firemen, paramedics, people who are first on the scene. So there's always a first response that has to happen in an event. And what often happens is when God challenges us to do something, when he challenges us to follow him and he calls us, we have a first response. And I think oftentimes that first response is doubt. And so what we see in this passage is doubt. We see people saying, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nathanael said. And then Philip's wondering, how do you know me? Who are you? How do you know who I am? And so what I want you to think about when you're teaching this week, the people in your group, when you kick off and ask that question of why not you? Why couldn't God use you? Their response is probably going to be your initial response when somebody asked you to start leading your life group, or when somebody started asking you to do something else for God. It's a thought, a response of doubt. Okay, so your first response is doubt. I can't do that because I am fill in the blank, or I've done this, fill in the blank. Your first response may be doubt. But there are people sitting in your room this week who God is calling to something. It may be to be a more faithful husband, a more faithful wife. Maybe they could help you with some things in your life group. Maybe they could help pass the offering basket. Maybe they could help teach. Maybe they could help go start in your group. Who knows what it is? Maybe God's going to call them to be a missionary somewhere. We don't know what that is, but God is calling them to something. But so often the first response is to doubt. But the amazing thing is that Jesus knows all of our past and all of our present, and he also knows all of our future. So just as Jesus saw Philip, he said in verse 48, how do you know me? Nathanael asked. And he said, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. See, there was a question going on, but Jesus had already seen everything that was going to happen. And when God called you to lead your group, and when he calls someone in your group to do something else, he already knows all the details. So think about that when you're teaching this week. Think about the people who God is calling to do something, because God is calling us to do something. There may be someone in your group that he's calling to salvation, he's calling to baptism, he's calling to join our church, calling to lead their family, calling them to lead a ministry. And think about those people and how you might challenge them. There's some great other ideas in the back of your book, some different ways you could approach the lesson. But what I wanted really to speak to you today is that call of God on someone's life and how God pursues us. And you are being faithful to teach your group. You know what that's like to answer your call. It doesn't mean it's always easy. But what if someone from your group, through reading about the people that Jesus challenged to follow him, okay, what if they obeyed and followed him? And we're not talking about a following like you follow the directions on your GPS on your phone on how to get from here to there. Okay, this is a call to follow him with your life, to be a disciple, to fully submit to him. What if God used your challenge and your lesson as you really challenged your people to follow him? What if someone fully submitted to him? What if in all 30 of our adult life groups on this campus, one person from every group fully submitted to follow him, and they put it out all on the table, and when Jesus says, follow me, they fully surrender to him? Hey, I'm going to be praying for you this week as you prepare. I pray for you every week. Thank you for being faithful to teach your group. If I can ever do anything for you, please feel free to reach out, call, text, email. I would love to talk to you. And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving last week, and I hope you have good times during the upcoming holidays. Thanks, and have a good day.